In my view, one of the greatest directors ever, the classic French comedian, filmmaker, Jacques Tati. This video is about him. We're going to go through his feature films and describe them and review them for you in brief so that you can become familiar with him and appreciate him a little bit more. He's one of my heroes, one of the greatest cinematic movie makers ever. So let's take a look at him coming up next. So this video is for those both who don't know Jacques Tati at all and those who do but may not appreciate him that much. He's a French director, filmmaker, and actor starring in his own movies, working from roughly the post-World War II era, 1948, 1949 or so, until the 1970s. His career is sort of easy to grasp as a movie watcher because he only made 6 feature films in total and several shorts, so you can go through, as I did, his movies, watching one movie a day for a week, and if you do that, you're really going to start to appreciate him because it's a picture of an artist who is complex and interesting, and really the major emotions that Tati wants to evoke are joy and playfulness in you, the viewer. Pretty rare for 20th and 21st century film, which tends to emphasize drama and tragedy and tension and problems in the world, although Tati is going to bring up some of that. His overall viewpoint, I think, is joy. And so this is one of the things I love about Tati. He embodies joy in his films. Of course, one reason he does that is because of his character, Monsieur Hulot, who he created for his second feature film, Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, a character who is not unlike, if you're familiar with them, silent movie comedies, say Charlie Chaplin's The Tramp, or Buster Keaton's character, or maybe even Harold Lloyd, and a lot of characters like that, sort of slapsticky, goofy, screwballish, and serendipitous or unserendipitous. They're either very lucky or very unlucky. Monsieur Hulot is that. You almost never hear him say anything in these movies. Of course, Tati, as an actor, comes out of a mime tradition, and you get that a little bit with his character of Monsieur Hulot, who became pretty famous in the mid-1950s because of just 2 feature films that Tati made during that period, which we'll get to. Monsieur Hulot's Holiday and Mon Oncle. I want to go through these one by one. As first is his first feature film from 1949, Jour de Fete. Check out my video on this already, but one of the themes that comes up throughout Tati's work is quaintness and particularity versus the modernistic drive for uniformity in modern mid-20th century modern culture, where architects try to make buildings the same throughout the world, where people are wearing the same clothing off of factory lines, and everyone's sort of a look-alike, and you get problems with simulacrums and imitations, and people want to imitate each other. Tati loves quaintness, so in Jour de Fete, the World War II town that he stayed in inspired him. He stayed in there during World War II, inspired him to make this movie about a quaint provincial town which has a carnival and a festival pass through it over a period of a day, and how it affects that quaint provincial town. Now, I'm talking about quaintness. I want to tell you that all of the themes I'm going to talk about in this video are peppered throughout Tati's work, and you watch any particular film, you'll probably find all of the themes in there, but I think he got better with each feature film. In fact, tremendously better. His growth curve, to me, as a director particularly, is exponential. He's famous for being very exacting in his shots and setting up shots and taking a long time to get each shot just right. That's why it took him so long to make feature films. His second feature film is beloved Monsieur Hulot's Holiday. This one's from 1953, and it features the Monsieur Hulot character, the bumbling, goofy, noise-making, inadvertently troublemaking character, especially in this movie, who goes from civilization, an urban French area, to a beachside resort, and the entire movie more or less takes place at this beachside resort. And just as this is a holiday for all the people in the movie, this is a holiday for viewers who get to relax and enjoy the sights and sounds and the goofiness and absurdity of Monsieur Hulot bumbling around this French beachside resort. Now, you watch this movie, you might accuse Tati of not making anything happen, and really his movies don't have much of a plot. They're a series of small episodes or scenes, a little bit like vaudeville shows or, say, Marx Brothers, in which a series of scenes may not add up to anything. They're just vignettes. And yet, I think there is a total picture in all of these movies. And one thing Tati is great at, besides visuals and being a great actor, is noise and sound effects and music. In this movie, Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, he pits a musical ditty, which is played maybe 20 times during this movie in different parts, comparing that to noise and noise-making devices, modernistic technological devices in general. One great noise-making device for Tati is the automobile, which Monsieur Hulot drives in this movie. It makes an incredible amount of noise, and one of the questions he raises is, during the 20th century, you have a tremendous amount of noise and noise pollution. How much is that wrecking or ruining our lives? It would be easy for him to mock this, and he does to certain extents with the cars, especially with the doors and the door hinges, and by the end of this movie, spoiler alert, the fireworks that Monsieur Hulot sets off. Nevertheless, I think he wants to bring up the fact that all noise is inherently musical and can be turned into music if a person like Tati or Hulot takes it and thinks about the wonder and the joy in the noise that can be turned into music. Tati is very exacting with the sound effects, and so all the doors, if you listen to them, they make a noise that's annoying, but is at once, well, potentially useful. Not only is it goofy and absurd and humans have created it and they keep putting up with the noise of the door hinge, but potentially it could be part of the musical background of a wonderful, quaint environment. And so while we may worry about noise pollution in our cities, as Tati will bring up throughout almost all his feature films from here on out, you will also hear things anew in his movies. He is a master of sound effects. Put on your best headphones or get out your best speakers for all of his movies. The third feature film from Tati is when I think he comes into his own as a director, and the Monsieur Hulot character makes a lot of sense in Mon Oncle.
Mon beau-frère.
Ah, ouais. Très bien.
Monsieur Pichard, mon collaborateur.
Enchanté.
Donc,
Très heureux.
Pichard, je poursuis mon idée.
This is a 1958 movie, his first in color, and it features Monsieur Hulot as a bumbling, goofy character as usual, going between two worlds, a quaint Parisian neighborhood, old and awesome looking, and something you'd want to wander around, sit at a cafe, and enjoy a leisurely afternoon, versus a very modernistic, brand new, fashionable part of Paris, where you have modern architecture and, featured in this great movie, a modern house with all the gadgets that a person would want, except they are quirky and weird and they go out of fashion pretty quickly. And this, the third theme that I want to bring up besides quaintness and noise, is fashion. Tati, I think he skewers it, but in a fun-loving and even joyful way. People are interested in fashion, which is either new gadgets or brand new kinds of clothing, and some of them are not functional at all. Some of them are just look ridiculous in comparison, especially to traditional architecture, traditional clothing. But in this movie in particular, I think all the clothing and all the gadgets went out of fashion very quickly. And that's one of Tati's criticisms about fashion, is that basically the minute it's rolled out and a few people start to use the thing and display it or wear it, it's out of fashion and you must move on to the brand new thing. And that's some of the fun he has with the household of the in-laws, Hulot's in-laws, here in this film. In this movie, Hulot is a very interesting character because he can't find a job, he can't hold down a job, and when he works a job, he doesn't fit into the factory system. So this is the kind of character I think Hulot, as a bumbling goofball in Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, who sometimes wrecks things, although he makes good friends. Here, he is, in a way, he doesn't fit into the modern world, and this is a point at which you can enter, I think, Tati's films and sort of get them as a quirky, weird, goofy human being yourself. And I think Tati says we all are. None of us sort of fit into these technological environments created for us by mass culture. So that's one of Tati's interesting observations. And yet he always has fun with it. He is always joyful about it and wants to say, you know, as I said, all humans are goofballs. And they are absurd in any environment. So even the people who are into fashion, even the people who are business oriented or business minded, as the in-laws are in this movie, they are as weird and goofy as Monsieur Hulot, even though the two of them, Hulot and the in-laws, live on two different sides of Paris. This brings us to the fourth Tati movie I want to highlight. This is one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion, just in my view. I would rewatch this every year and get a total kick out of it because it inspires me as a creator for this channel and just as a person living life in general. It's Playtime. Playtime is so interesting. It's a 1967 feature made 9 years after Mon Oncle. It's in color, it's a widescreen movie, and Tati finally had a huge budget to do whatever he wanted, and he made a movie that, for modern audiences at the time, was basically unwatchable. There's almost no plot here. There is a bit of a through plot, but you gotta struggle to get through it, and that's one of Tati's great observations, is that we as viewers, we want something like a plot and just for a movie to make it easy for us to go through, when we should be observers, observing modern culture, watching and listening, and seeking to understand what it's about and criticizing it the way he does. Now, Playtime brings up all the themes I've just mentioned: quaintness, noise, and fashion. And here you've got it in spades. And I think the fourth thing we can bring up is technological gadgets, particularly cars, as you'll see in all the Tati's movies, but also just stuff, things with buttons, panels with buttons that don't make any sense, that don't have labels, and nobody knows how to operate them. They show up a lot in Tati's movies. They're funny because they're interesting noisemakers, and because humans have created something that nobody can use. Here in this movie, you get a 45-minute restaurant scene, which I think is one of the best stretches in film history. You need to be patient to get to it, but it is once a weird, chaotic criticism of modernism and social environments in the new city of Paris as it's been sort of redeveloped post-war. And yet, it's a fun look at the organic, spontaneous nature of humans who want to create joy in their environment and to create joy in packs of people with music and food and fun. This is festival on screen, the idea of a festival here in this movie. By the end, you have a carnivalistic atmosphere in a Paris that's gray and dull, square boxy, glassy, and modern. It's almost anti-human in parts, especially early parts of this movie. By the end, it's a joy-filled festival, and I love that trajectory over the course of this movie. I think you should not watch this movie first, though. I think the next movie I'm going to talk about, Trafic, probably the place to start with Tati, maybe also Monsieur Hulot's Holiday. I would watch Playtime either as my second, probably even my third Tati movie had I never seen one, because it's not as easy to get into. You sort of know the frequency that you need to be on in order to understand it. You need to be a keen observer with your ears open and your eyes open and your brain functioning. But this is, if you pay attention to this movie, it rewards you tremendously. The fifth feature film by Tati is Trafic, sometimes overlooked, sometimes disparaged, but I think if you're going to start with Tati, probably this is the one to begin with. It's a 1971 feature, not in widescreen. Tati did not have a good budget because Playtime totally flailed and flopped at the box office. So this is a smaller affair. This is in a way a quest movie, though, with more of a plot that makes probably sense to almost all viewers worldwide who are used to Hollywood movies, let's say. Here Tati works as a auto designer for a company, Ultra, and the task here is to take an ultra-modern camper from the factory where it's being designed and built in France to the Netherlands to show it off in a car show. And Monsieur Hulot and a number of people are equipped to take this car, but they have all kinds of problems getting this new car to the car show on time. So it's a quest movie where the characters just struggle to get to the end goal. This makes a lot of sense, and you'll see a lot of funny gags in this movie around all the things that Tati loves to talk about, but particularly noise, and particularly, especially given the movie's title, traffic and automobiles. In a way, this movie brings together a lot, probably all the themes we've talked about so far, and the one theme here that comes up is the automobile, how much it has changed modern life, modern society. The question is isn't one of the worst inventions ever. I mean, really, it changed our cities. It took them from a human scale to a technological scale that is vast and distant and perhaps alienating, making our cities bigger, our roads wider, and making us more distant from each other, because we can be with the automobile, and it makes a lot of noise. It smells badly at the time, lead gasoline. And so then you got all these problems potentially with automobiles. At the same time, automobiles are being fetishized both by the car companies who are marketing them, as well as people who are really into cars and the way they look and how fast they go. So this movie has great fun with those who would fetishize cars in particular, and the ridiculousness of the camper in this movie cannot be explained fully. You have to see it to believe it. And it is out of fashion at the moment it's released, just like the doors and the chairs and other stuff and the gadgets in Tati movies. It's just as out of fashion quickly. Just look at those chairs. Just look at the grill, the literal grill that grills food in this car. It's hilarious. For Tati, does modern architecture ruin us? Do cars ruin us? Do new gadgets, the desire for fashion? The answer could be yes, and he could be a harsh critic, despairing. He could be cynical and bitter about it. The whole time, throughout all of these features, he is inherently joyful, making fun of us, the humans who are in these environments, loving this stuff or dealing with it, putting up with it. Most of us just put up with this stuff and go along with it because we can't do anything about it. And the individual Monsieur Hulot is a figurehead and a counterpoint for this modernistic stuff, because he's a quirky, weird human being, and we identify with him as a mime character moving and bumbling through this world. A man, except for Trafic, without a job, with a trench coat and an umbrella. He is a delightful person, and yet he sort of doesn't get along in this world. It is really is a character who's alienated from everything, and you get tons of those in 20th century cinema. He is both alienated and delightful to watch. So the idea of joy, I think, the emotion of joy triumphs over all the bitterness that could come up in these movies. Now, if you've made it this far, this is Tati's last feature of a sort, Parade. This is actually a television movie made in 1974, and it is, as everyone knows, just not as good. It's not a Monsieur Hulot movie, and it features a circus in which Tati is goofing around, having fun with all the stuff we've talked about, but the overall movie making and the quality of this movie is not good. So I think only if you're a Tati completist should you watch Parade. Nevertheless, it will deliver some insights and joy for you as well as these other movies we've talked about. What do you think about Jacques Tati? What I said, what I recommend? Again, I would say start with Monsieur Hulot's Holiday or Trafic first. Work your way up to Mon Oncle, maybe Playtime. And then those 4 films will give you delight. But Jour de Fete, don't overlook it as his first feature. I really like that movie too. So that one's worth seeking out as well. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content, and check out my Great Director series, in which I go through all the great movies from many great directors. And these videos take me a lot of time, and a lot of love is put into them. So thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Have a great day.